Yeah, Brock Purdy, 444 pass attempts last year. Christian McCaffrey coming off a 420 touch season, I think, and Purdy was coming off elbow surgery. Please don't trade Ayuk again. If they deal Ayuk and don't get Cooper back,
They're not going to, right?
I will lower. No, Shanahan's mad at him.
When do players
there's
get traded
real
in
problem
August?
back
Players
there.
never get traded this time of year. It makes no sense.
No, well, don't jinx this because it's a real possibility still. He's not playing on the 5th year. Shanahan's upset with him. I don't know. I hope they just don't. If they trade him for just draft picks and no receiver back, it'll be a big. The year they're trying to win the Super Bowl with the timeline ending, it would be a big mistake. But that's my bet. Is this Purdy gets more volume than ranking? He was toward the bottom of the league in pass attempts last year. And yes, that historical efficiency is bound to regress. 9.6 yards per attempt. I don't think people understand how ridiculously great that is. But that's my bet. Again, like Jordan Love is a top 12 guy, I'm just personally drafting BCB and Jaden Daniels over him.
Scott Pianowski sitting in for Matt Harmon today on the Yahoo Fantasy Forecast, joined by my main man, Dalton Del Don. I say Yahoo Fantasy Forecast. It's really the Brock Purdy forecast. I hope we don't talk anymore Brock Purdy the rest of the show. But the Niners are great. Shanahan's great. Dalton's great. Very briefly, before we hit our next break, I just want to mention a couple of quarterbacks I have different than market. I like Kirk Cousins a lot more than the market does. I know major injury, mid-30s. They drafted Penix. I get all that. But there's such great tools here. What if Zach Robinson is the next great offensive coordinator? He came from the Shanahan tree, indoor schedule, and an easy schedule. And when we talk about strength of schedule, which I think is largely misunderstood, it's not like, well, this team is the 13th best schedule. This team is the 17th best schedule. I don't care about any of that. Tell me whose schedule is great, easy. Tell me whose schedule is horrifically hard. When you look at that great Warren Sharp graphic that shows strength of schedule based on projected win totals, the Falcons are such an out. They're not just number one. They're nowhere near the rest of the pack. I can't imagine how that schedule will end up playing difficult. There's going to be a ton of things we don't know in the NFL. It's a reshuffle league. It's a snow globe league. I get that. But Kirk Cousins, no, he's not going to run it all. But I think there's a lot of pieces here. They finally got Arthur Smith out of town. I don't know. I'm just asking him to make a par or maybe a birdie. He can outkick his ADP pretty easily. So he's one of the guys. And I know he's not as sexy as a runner and his age and all that, but I think he has a great chance to beat his ADP.
Yeah, it was a QB7 in fantasy points per game last season and available super late. For me, the tier right after Caleb Williams, my QB13, Tua, Goff, Lawrence, Stafford, Herbert, Cousins, interchangeable. Take any you want there. So you could move Cousins all the way up to 14 and I'd have no argument whatsoever there. Hopefully returns from the Achilles, new system and all that, but indoors, stars at wide receiver, tight end, and running back. Yeah, no pushback on Captain Kirk from me.
Now you mentioned Herbert. He's actually the quarterback I like far less than market. And not that I don't like Justin Herbert, but that wide receiver room, don't know what I'm getting there. Jim Harbaugh wants to run the ball. Greg Roman, his longtime offensive coordinator at Stanford, at San Francisco, they run the ball everywhere they've gone. Michigan just won a title running the ball left and right. I realized J.J. McCarthy was still drafted in the first round, but he was throwing 20 passes a game. I don't see how the Chargers, and granted, their running back room, it's not like they're looking at stars at running back too. It's kind of hard to sort through who their runners are as well. I still don't know which Charger running back I want to draft, but I don't know how Justin Herbert, he's a great player. I don't know how he can be great in 2024 with the current setup.
Apparently, the running back is not Kamani Vidal, who I had been drafting, and he's on the roster bubble. Totally with you on Herbert. First of all, 7.1 YPA throughout his career. I think that his efficiency will actually improve under this new coaching staff. But man, you got to worry about the volume. I think I said he had plantar fasciitis earlier. I believe that's a misdiagnosis. He tore the plantar fascia, and that can linger throughout the season. It's a concern. They have a good offensive line, but yeah, McConkey did not demand targets in college, dealt with a lot of injuries, is currently dealing with injuries. I've moved Josh Palmer ahead of him in my rankings. I love him as a sleeper, but yeah, if he's your number one guy, you can't get too excited about their quarterback from a fantasy perspective. So Herbert, yeah, no need to draft him this year outside of super flex leagues.
Yeah, producer Colin did mention that Colin Kaepernick was a fantasy star under Harbaugh, but I mean, so much of that Kaepernick stardom was just his amazing running ability. So I don't know what's Herbert's upside as a runner. I mean, 250 yards maybe.
Yeah, especially dealing with the injury. I mean, that's just an issue there for sure. But Herbert's gonna have some big seasons in the future with this coaching staff, and once they improve their receiving core. But this is the year, especially entering the year injured. This is the year, just obvious red flags to avoid.
Going to take one more break before we get into the final lap of our quarterback preview. When we return, sleepers, late round targets, the players we're going to draft the most, and a final piece of advice as you get ready for your quarterback drafting in 2024. Come back and join us.